The Giants have won a football game. Welcome back to the Empire State Sports Report. I'm your host, Adrianna, also known as New York Giants fangirl across all social media channels. Welcome back to the podcast. It's sponsored by Believe and FanDuel Sportsbook. Check out FanDuel to get all of the best odds for whatever you're betting on, whether it's the NFL, MLB, MLS, anything you're looking to bet on, FanDuel has you covered. So make sure you download the app and check them out. Guys, the Giants won a football game, and I don't care that it's preseason. Abdul Carter tweeted out after the game, he wrote W and then wrote Dubs only. And I think whether you're Abdul Carter or you're Dexter Lawrence, it feels good coming out of a game with a win. And this team has been deprived of them. They've been starved of them. And it almost has felt like they don't know how to win football games over the last couple of years. So I know it's only preseason, but at the end of the day, going 1-0 and walking out of the Bills Stadium when you played your starters, and there are a lot of really good things to talk about after that game, I just think it's a confidence boost for everyone. And ultimately, that's what you need to feel like you're good enough to continue to win football games. So, by the way, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, I'm still in LBI, which is why this is not my normal background. But it was a fun game. It was really nice to see a couple things. Number one, that all four quarterbacks led us on scoring drives. I know Russell Wilson didn't get a touchdown and the other ones did, but they still ended up with points on the board, which is what you need to do to win games. Number two, there were no turnovers on offense. Great start, especially after Jameis Winston threw an interception and it got called back because of a penalty. And number three, there were no sacks. There were a lot of combinations of this offensive line. And I think there were at least 10 different players who played throughout from the first quarter all the way to the end of the fourth quarter. And the fact that Joshua Zudu was in at left tackle, and not only was Jackson Dart still able to make throws, he actually did a really good job. I just saw a crazy stat and I was like, this cannot be real. I'm going to read it to you because I was like, but I was watching the game thinking like, this is the best showing I think I've ever seen from Joshua Zudu. And I still don't want to see him at left tackle, between James Hudson and Marcus Bowe, who we're going to talk about in a minute. We might have a backup left tackle or swing tackle for the future. Joshua Zudu scored an 88.5 PFF pass blocking grade on Saturday. Like I said, the best he's done probably ever. So, I think maybe Carmen Brasillo in year two, I think there's probably a lot of different reasons why, but maybe, just maybe, this offensive line group as a whole is not going to be a weakness of this football team moving forward. So let's really start with the offensive line here. So that scoring drive with Russell Wilson and the offense, Russ went 6 for 7 for 28 yards. He had one ball that was batted down that was supposed to go to Tracy. No Neighbors, no Hyatt, no Darius Slayton. So keep that in mind. And of course, no Andrew Thomas. But they were going against Bill starters. They were efficient in moving the ball down the field. If James Hudson doesn't commit one, forget about two of those penalties, probably ends that drive with a touchdown. So it's stuff like that that's frustrating. Yes, it's preseason, but if Andrew Thomas is not ready to go and we have to rely on James Hudson as the starting left tackle, you can't do that. Just unacceptable. So that's going to be the one thing that I really want to see him clean up from week 1 to week 2 in the preseason, because you can't get a holding penalty and a false start on the same drive. They're just drive killers. We talk about this all the time. And when you're on a team where the offense is not consistently putting up touchdowns, you just can't do things like that. So I really want to see James Hudson improve upon that. Again, overall, no sacks for this entire offensive line. Pretty impressive. I thought the starting five, again, outside of those penalties, did a nice job. They gave Russ enough time, most of the time, to get the ball to Wan'Dale Robinson, to get it to Theo Johnson, who made some really nice catches. Who else? And Tracy. And again, I know that some people are going to complain, we didn't see them throw the ball down the field. There were a lot of checkdowns, this and that. It was a preseason game. There was no game planning. Their best offensive player was not on the field, followed by Darius Slayton is probably their second best wide receiver. So he also wasn't on the field. So I think there was some good things out of the starting offense. Again, next week, James Hudson needs to clean up the penalties. Would like to see at the very least Slayton. I'm fine with not seeing Neighbors. And even Jalen Hyatt. Hyatt was involved a bit with the ones. He's got a great connection with Russell Wilson, and he was having a really good camp before he dealt with that injury. So, Dable said multiple times during probably every press conference that I listened to in the last 48 hours, players who did not play, it's because they were injured. There's no other reasoning for it. He wants the guys to play. He thinks it's important. That's why we saw Russell. That's why we saw every other starter out there aside from them, because they were not healthy or ready to go. So hopefully, again, with another week under their belt, they're ready to go versus the Jets. And if not, I hope we see them against the Pats. I don't need to see Dexter Lawrence. I don't need to see Neighbors. It's always fun to watch Neighbors, but would rather him wait until the regular season. So would like to see those other wide receivers in for a little bit. But ultimately, I thought they were efficient and the offensive line did a nice job. I think that's all that really sticks out with the ones. With the twos, Jackson Dart, way more impressive than I thought he was going to be. There were three things that I wanted to see him do during this game. Number one, slide. Number two, get through his reads. Number three, make smart decisions with the ball. He did two out of those three things. Obviously, there's not always going to be an opportunity to slide. But when he took off on that 19-yard scramble, all I was thinking to myself was, please slide, please slide, please slide. And, after the game, he was asked about it and Dable was asked about it. And Dart says, I think Dable liked it. Like, I think he likes the aggressiveness. And Dable said the same thing. And Dable's like, we do remind him, like, it's important that the quarterbacks have to slide. They can't take these hits, whatever. But I like the competitiveness and I like the toughness. And, that's what the other players on the team want to see from him. And we saw that with Jones. Unfortunately, with Jones, it just led to a lot of injuries. So I think we're all a little panicky about that. But other than that, Dart did a really nice job of progressing through his reads. Not every throw that he made was the first one. The throws that he made to Montreal, Washington, the touchdown pass was perfect in every way, shape, and form. The number one thing that Jackson Dart was good at coming out of college, and his the number one, recruiting thing, was that he's good under pressure. And we got to see that in game one of the preseason on that touchdown throw. There were guys rushing at him. He's on the ground as Montreal, Washington is making the catch. Perfect ball, accuracy, led the receiver, gave him a chance to make the play. He does, touchdown, perfect. I liked seeing Dart get a lot of playing time too. I think ultimately, obviously, it's really important, and especially if we're not going to see a lot of rust. But I think the more time that he's out there too, the more he's going to have the opportunity to make plays. So there were no turnovers, which is something too that I talked about, is that I wanted to see him make smart decisions with the ball. And if he felt like that window was really closing tightly, does he throw the ball away? Does he go to another receiver, or does he test it? And, we saw him, I think, test a couple throws. There was another great throw to Montreal, Washington, who I think should have caught it. Also, it's little Jordan Humphrey who scored the touchdown, not Montreal, Washington. But between those two of those guys, they have been really involved with Jackson Dart, and they both had a nice showing. Dalen Cambry, who was involved, also a couple drops. But Jackson Dart, I thought overall did a great job. And again, he was not sacked. And even when there was pressure coming at him, he was able to make plays. So he went 12 for 19 for 154 yards, one touchdown, and then he had that 19-yard scramble. I think he ended up with 23 carries for 24 yards, and the longest was that 19-yard run. But overall, very impressed with what I saw Jackson Dart. And I'm mostly just excited to see more of him. So let's watch as he develops. Do I think that he's going to do enough to beat out Jameis Winston to be the number 2 quarterback? Very possible, but Russell Wilson is the starter, and I don't think anything is going to change that. But I hope the more he continues to play too, and he was going against some of the Bills starters, gives us as a fan base the confidence to say, we're excited about the future with him, because Russ and Jameis are not the future of this franchise. It's Jackson Dart and Abdul Carter and Malik Neighbors. So let's see, how he continues to grow and develop. But liked a lot of the things that I saw. From the second team, Dante Miller, you guys, I know I talk about him all the time, but I hope that if you were not really familiar with him, or we're just kind of tuning into the game and was like, oh, this guy stood out. Brian Dable even called him, what I think Jordan Renan tweeted, he was like the offensive player of the game. So, he did a really nice job. He converted a lot of 3rd and longs. He successfully executed the screen game, which this Giants team hasn't seen in probably a decade. And he caught almost every ball that came his way. He was very impressive. He led the running backs with seven for seven. Okay. 7 targets, 7 receptions for 80 yards. So he did catch every ball that came his way. And, you really got to see that explosiveness on full display and the shiftiness that he has. So, this is the fun part of the preseason, I think, is seeing guys like him and, some other potentials, Thomas Fidone, who stepped in and made plays and are going to make it really tough on this front office to decide who's going to make this roster. So really impressed with Turbo, thought he did a great job and he was fun to watch. Montreal Washington out of 6 targets, 3 receptions for 60 yards. Little Jordan Humphrey out of 4 targets, 2 receptions for 36 yards. I also thought Jonathan Ward, the new running back that they signed, had a nice showing. Out of 5 targets, he had 4 receptions for 35 yards. And then Gunnar was right behind him. But I felt like overall, the wide receivers, we saw some nice things. Couple drops here and there, but nothing crazy. And I think if that continues, it's also going to make that wide receiver position challenging to decide who's going to make it. But I'm excited to continue to watch that develop because it's been great. And, we saw a little bit of Devin Singletary. He was fine. I don't think there's any questions about him or what he's capable of. But, I think when we look at Tyrone Tracy and what he's capable of and Scadaboo and someone like Turbo, it's like, why would we keep Singletary on this roster? We'll see what they end up doing. But as of right now, I think those 3 guys would be way more fun and effective as backs than, anyone else. So for the rest of the running backs, they had 25 carries for 79 yards. Jackson Dart's 19-yard rush was the longest. Dante had 10 carries for 22 yards. Jameis 1 for 12. And then Tracy, Ward, Montreal Washington, Devin Singletary, and Tommy DeVito all had, a couple carries for just a few yards. Nothing impressive there. But let's move over to the rest of the wide receivers. So we talked about some of the other ones. Gunnar Olszewski, out of 8 targets, had 5 receptions for 27 yards. I thought he had a relatively nice game, and also had that 1 touchdown catch too, which was nice. Thomas Fidone. Okay, let's talk about him because there obviously has been a lot of question marks around what the Giants are going to do at tight end. And, Fidone, 7th round pick, coming off these 2 injuries. They already have Bellinger, Manhurts, and Theo Johnson, who we know they all love. So it's kind of like, where does Fidone fit in here, right? And he's been a little hit or miss during camp. He had a concussion, so he missed some practices as well. And he was healthy, ready to go. When the ball came his way, he went 3 for 3 for how many yards? 22 yards. And then he caught the 2-point conversion. So the one thing that I really like about these tight ends being involved is that it's a really big target for the quarterback. And when you look at Theo Johnson, and Bellinger was relatively athletic, but between Theo and Fidone, they're really athletic, tall guys who can make catches, who are going to be really important to this red zone offense. So I loved seeing him involved in the 2-point conversion and hope that that's something that we see more of in the future. So just rounding out on the offense, Wan'Dale Robinson was he had that 1 catch for 11 yards. Theo went 2 for 2 for 10 yards. Zach Pascal, 1 for 1 for 9 yards. Jordan Bly, 1 for 1 for 8. Tracy had 2 receptions for 7 yards. Dolchich, 2 out of 3 for 7. And then Emir Smith-Marset, 1 for 5 yards. Bellinger, 1 for 1, ended up with no yardage there. And then Dalen Cambry, Juice Wells, Singletary, and Smith-Marset were also involved a little bit, but didn't bring much to the table from a receiving perspective. So overall with the offense, I think we saw some really good things. The fact that all 4 quarterbacks led scoring drives was really important. The offensive line didn't get a single sack, didn't give up one. All 4 of them. Again, I know those of you who've watched and paid attention to Joshua as you do, and it's not just him. Like Jay Kubas was in, Aaron Stinney, Austin Schlottman, James Hudson. Stone Forsythe and Marcus Bowe. Let's round it out on the offense talking about Marcus Bowe because he played left tackle and right tackle and did a really good job. I was surprised that the Giants went ahead and just kind of moved him over. Did a really excellent job. Brian Baldinger posted on Twitter some of his reps and was very impressed with them. And I think the overall consensus is that if Marcus Bowe continues to improve when he's out there, whether he's left tackle or right tackle, he could be the Giants swing tackle of the future, which is something that we have not been able to say for a really long time. So he was someone that impressed. I'm really excited to see more of him and, would love him to be the swing tackle for this team. The last thing I want to say is just that, it was really unfortunate that we didn't get to see Evan Neal. These are really valuable reps when it comes to the preseason. And I just hope he's back for this week because he's still going to have that option to beat out GVR for the starting right guard. And, the more time that he misses, the more he's not going to be able to do that. And we always say that just competition across the board is good for everyone. So I would like to see that from Evan Neal, and I hope that he's able to play, even if it's not during the scrimmage and the practices this week against the Jets. If we could see him on Saturday, I think that would make a really big difference. Before we move over to the defense, let's talk about ZipRecruiter. If you've ever had to hire anyone, you know how difficult it is to find the perfect candidate. You get a bunch of resumes, a ton of applications, and just not enough candidates have the right skills, experience, or exactly what it is that you're looking for. But that's not the case with ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter finds amazing candidates for you, and they do it fast. And right now, you can try it for free at ziprecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter's smart technology identifies top talent for your roles. And like I said, they do it fast. Immediately after you post your job, ZipRecruiter's matching technology starts showing you people that are qualified for it right off the bat. Ditch the other hiring sites and let ZipRecruiter find what you're looking for, the needle in the haystack. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try it for free at this exclusive web address, ziprecruiter.com/audio. Again, that's ziprecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. All right. Let's talk about the defense because I know everyone is chomping at the bit to talk about Abdul Carter. And this is what I want it to be this every single week. And this is just the beginning. He played 6 snaps. The 3 that he played as a pass rusher, he had 3 quarterback pressures. Need I say more? He also lined up a defensive tackle and he was on the field for 6 plays and just wreaked havoc. Absolutely amazing. He's going to be so fun to watch. And, to get to just see a little slice of that in the preseason in action against the Bills starters, with the exception of Josh Allen, should just have everyone over the moon that picking Abdul Carter at number 3 was the right pick. And I think everyone already agrees with that. But in case you had any concerns, like the people who are in my DMs telling me that we should have drafted Shedeur Sanders, get a life or go root for the Browns, Abdul Carter was the right pick. And he was just unbelievable. So we got to see Abdul Carter, we got to see different pass rushers, and then we also got to see the 3 safety look that we've been seeing a bit at camp too, where Dane Belton was in with the ones. Dane Belton kind of did what he does, right? He seems to always be around the ball, but then he misses a tackle that drives you nuts. So that's, I think, the biggest concern coming out of this game is that the starting defense is really good, and I don't think we're going to have any problems there. We didn't even see Dexter Lawrence, and they were still capable of doing a nice job of stopping the run. The concern at cornerback is obviously still an issue. Banks had, a couple nice plays, and then the rest of it, you're just like, turn your head around, make a play, pay attention. And Joe Schoen was on the broadcast, and I'm sure everyone noticed that he was the only starting player on defense who played the entire first quarter when everyone else was off the field. So, Joe Schoen just said, there's a quarterback competition for CB2. It's between him and Cordell Flott. And unfortunately, Cordell Flott is missing valuable reps with the injury. There's nothing that anyone can do about it. I really hope he's back for this weekend. But, it's a little concerning that Banks is out there for a whole quarter. I don't think he made anyone feel significantly better about seeing him out there. And, it's just disappointing. Like, I think part of it too is when Carl Banks on the broadcast says that he doesn't like Banks's attitude after the play where he got shut down, where he's going to the sidelines. Like, that can't still be a problem. And, he didn't have that issue in year one. And maybe it's because he had a really great year. So he had the confidence that he was good. And I don't know what the issue is now, if he feels like he just doesn't have the confidence to bounce back, but it's a problem. And he just cannot have that attitude, or else it's going to end up being Cordell Flott all the time. And I only want to see Cordell Flott if he is that much better than Tay Banks. But the good news for the defensive concerns that we have, whether it's Tay Banks or the fact that if, God forbid, Dexter Lawrence, Roy Robertson Harris, or Nacho gets injured, we still cannot stop the run, then we are the third team on waivers. So we are going to have the opportunity to maybe bring in a Nick McLeod or a Jason Pinnock or another cornerback or defensive lineman who, ends up being a decent player for the Giants for the year. So, that's definitely going to be something to watch as they go about making their cuts in the upcoming weeks. But still a little bit of concern there that outside of that first team defense, the run defense is not good. So something to watch again against the Jets this week, if there's any improvements there. I think ultimately we're always going to see good things and bad things. There's no team that's perfect, but they really have to improve upon that. Or, if someone gets injured, there's just going to be no hope that we're going to be able to keep the offense in games if the defense can't stop the run. So, a little bit of a concern there. Real quick, I want to run through just a few defensive stats. Nick Jones led the team with 5 tackles and 4 solo. Now, there were some plays that I was just like, dude, oh, you're killing me. Like, I'm rooting so hard for you to be the backup slot corner behind Drew Phillips. And then there was just, like 1 or 2 plays that I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if there was a miscommunication or what, but he just let the receiver get ahead of him and made a huge play. And I think that's another thing that all of us had a little bit of deja vu during is, secondary gives up a huge play, and then 1 second later they have a touchdown. So obviously a concern and something that needs to be improved upon over the week. The Giants defense had 6 quarterback hits. One of them was KJ Cloyd, who was just recently signed back to the team. One of them, Trace Ford, who also recovered a fumble. He had a pretty good game. And then DJ Davidson, Roy Robertson Harris, and Jordan Riley and Tomon Fox had the rest of the quarterback hits. So overall, I feel like we saw, a decent showing from the defense. There also were 2 sacks, one from DJ Davidson and one from Jordan Riley. I like seeing that from those 2 guys specifically because for their Giants career, they've really been hit or miss. DJ Davidson has dealt with a lot of injuries, and, it seems like they make a good play and then they don't do anything for the rest of the game. So those are 2 guys that are going to have the opportunity to make the roster to potentially be backups behind Nacho and Roy Robertson Harris and potentially Jeremiah Ledbetter or, whoever else I think is going to be the third there. But he's got to continue. Both of them have to continue to improve upon that. You can't have one good hit or one good play and call it a day. So those will be guys to watch, I think, in game 2 to see if they can continue to develop and improve over their game 1. But some of the other, backups, I definitely think there's fair concern there. So, we'll see how it develops in game 2. Special teams, the only thing I really have to say is that Graham Gano looked great. The first field goal he missed, I don't know if you guys saw it, it bounced off the crossbar and went in, luckily. But he had multiple field goals for over 30 yards, over 50 yards. And then he also did well with the extra point. And then they also put in Jude McAdamney. I'm not pronouncing that right, but they also put him in for one of the extra points and he did well, went 1 for 1 too. So my biggest concern that I saw with special teams is the tackling still seems to be an issue, even though they brought in guys like Chris Ford and, a few other ones who are supposed to be helping on special teams and just have some tackling issues. So there are things to be improved upon for next week. Absolutely. But in my opinion, overall, I think this was a good showing for the Giants. They walked out of the Bills Stadium with a win. They played starters, were able to move the ball down the field. You had all 4 quarterbacks that led scoring drives. There were no sacks, there were no interceptions, no turnovers. And there were some sacks and some nice tackles behind the line. So overall, I hope that as a collective, we feel like there was more good maybe than bad that came out of this game. But we'll see moving forward. I'll be back later this week to recap the Giants versus Jets scrimmage and then to talk about the preseason game coming up on Saturday. I'm going to go live during that preseason game too, so stay tuned for more details on that. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you subscribe for more, and I'll see you later this